Okay, so these are the two boxers in the midst of the controversy for the Paris Olympics, Imane Khelif and Yu-ting, who the International Boxing Association, the IBA, contends that they were tested under their matches or competitions or their um, organization's control of world boxing, International Boxing Association competitions, and they found that these two, according to the IBA, to have the XY chromosomes, and that the IBA says they reported to the IOC. Now, this update, there's going to be a few segments that I've added to some video I've already shared to just kind of give more background. So if you watch the first part of this video and you start getting into the last part of the video and you've already seen that, that's fine. You can just watch the first parts of this video, the first segments. All right, let's go to it. Okay, this is the Olympics website, olympics.com. And I just want to read a segment out of the International Olympic Committee's Framework on Fairness. This was published in November. I want to get down to just one thing to point out here, and that is this paragraph here in the framework. The document was developed following an extensive consultation with athletes and stakeholders concerned. This included members of the athlete community, international federations, and other sports organizations, as well as human rights, legal, and medical experts. It replaces and updates previous IOC statements on this matter, including the 2015 consensus statement. The framework recognizes both the need to ensure that everyone, irrespective of their gender, identity, or sex variation, can practice sport in a safe, harassment-free environment that recognizes and respects their needs and identities. I'm going to stop there. They're getting into this gender identity stuff. So the International Olympic Committee tries to, I'm trying to figure out a political correct way to say this. They seem to be lending their support to how you identify yourself, your gender. However, in this framework, they do allow the different sports organizations, federations, etc., for each sport to determine what the eligibility criteria is to support, to participate, for example, in like the women's category. However, let me just read a paragraph of this article regarding that. There is well-documented bad blood between the two organizations. The IOC banned the IBA, that's the International Boxing Association, banned the IBA from the Olympics in 2023, causing the ongoing dispute between the two groups. Considering the IOC doesn't currently recognize the IBA, it does not come as a surprise that the result of the IBA's test and the bans that follow were not held up by the IOC. And this is an article I'm reading from MSN.com. And so the thing is the IBA was banned by the IOC because of the reports are that there was corruption, fixing fights, something of things of that nature, that the IOC banned the IBA from participation in Olympic stuff back in 2023. So the fact that IBA has reported two of the boxers, one of them being Imane Khelif, that the IBA has reported to the IOC, the International Olympic Committee, that Imane Khelif failed to test related to testing for male chromosomes is basically this article is saying that that's was ignored by the IOC because of the existing um, dispute from the IOC banning the IBA on separate matters. So hopefully that's not confusing you. So basically, the IOC banned the IBA from participating in the Olympics because of alleged corruption or fight fixing, and then the IBA in a couple of instances tested Imane Khelif and determined and indicated in their testing that Imane Khelif has the XY chromosomes and indicated to the IOC that Imane Khelif has those chromosomes that are typically representative of male biology. And so the IOC, which doesn't do screening of all the women athletes and leans toward inclusion in women's competitions for those who have a passport that says that they're a woman and their country of origin or where they're from says they're a woman. And provides passports or whatever documentation. The IOC, in leaning toward inclusion, uh, and their process accepts that. So it looks like the IOC has not done any testing to combat what the IBA is saying, but the IOC is disputing that the IBA's tests are not legitimate. So that's what you have. I'm on the Olympics.com website, and this page on the IOC, the International, or yeah, I believe it's the International Olympic Committee that owns the Olympics.com domain name. But this page talks about, the decades going way, 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 way back that the Olympic organization has um, been fighting against doping, using all sorts of you know, products to gain an unfair advantage in the Olympics. And so, more recently, let me just read this. In 2017, the IOC Executive Board included the creation of the International Testing Agency, ITA, an independent organization specialized in managing anti-doping programs in its 12 principles for a more robust and independent global anti-doping system to protect clean athletes. Since 2019, the IOC has delegated responsibility for the organization and management of doping control at the Olympic Games to the ITA. The IOC has called on all international federations to follow these steps and fully delegate their entire testing programs to the ITA and sanctioning to the CAS anti-doping division. The reason I shared this, I found this interesting that there's an international agency that the Olympic Committee has really pushed to, standardize testing and undertaking the massive task of trying to eliminate um, doping being a part of the Olympics. And at the same time, the Olympic Committee, according to what um, different sources are saying, doesn't do screening and testing and verification of the athletes, all the athletes that are trying to participate in the women's category of different events. So, with that, here will be showing you segments of video that we've shared previously. Hello, folks. This video here is going to be a video where I try to give some actual, as direct as I can, information about who said what in the controversy surrounding the Olympic boxer from Algeria by the name of Imane Khelif. I think my pronunciation is pretty close, if not right on target. This picture that you're seeing is a picture of the boxer um, at the center of much of the controversy here. And so let's get into some information that will hopefully help you understand the background and more, direct information of who said what. The International Boxing Association versus the International Olympic Committee, and I've got also um, icons I believe is the name of the organization that supports fairness in women's sports. We're going to let them weigh in, and I'll try to limit my commentary to not be overbearing, to let you hear from uh, the sources, some of the sources that I've looked at. All right, let's get to it. This site here is the IBA's site, the actual International Boxing Association. And I'm going to just read you a bit of what they have on their site. As stated, the International Boxing Association feels it appropriate at this prevalent time to address recent media statements regarding those athletes, Yu-ting and Imane Khelif, particularly regarding their participation in the Paris Olympics Games 2024. We wish to make the following points in these regards. On the 24th of March, On 24 March 2023, IBA disqualified athletes Yu-ting and Imane Khelif from the IBA Women's World Boxing Championships, New Delhi 2023. This disqualification was a result of their failure to meet the eligibility criteria for participating in the women's competition. As set and laid out in the IBA regulations, this decision, made after a meticulous review, was extremely important and necessary to uphold the level of fairness and utmost integrity of the competition. Point to note, the athletes did not undergo a testosterone examination, but were subject to a separate and recognized test whereby the specifics remain confidential. This test conclusively indicated that both athletes did not meet the required necessary eligibility criteria and were found to have competitive advantages over other female competitors. The decision made by IBA on 24 March 2023 was subsequently ratified by the IBA Board of Directors on 25 March 2023. The official record of this decision can be accessed on the IBA website here, IBA Board of Directors Meeting Minutes. The disqualification was based on two tests concluded on both athletes as follows. Test performed during the IBA Women's World Boxing Championships in Istanbul 2022. Tests performed during the IBA Women's World Boxing Championships in New Delhi 2023. Okay, so I want to give you one more thing to help understand what the IBA is stating here. Okay, so this is Reuters. Let me just read what they say. The results of the chromosome test demonstrated both boxers were ineligible. See, that's in quotes. So they're referring back to the IBA, and what the IBA is, their stand is that Imane, Khelif, and one other boxer, but just I'm going to focus on Imane Khelif here, um, is ineligible based on chromosome tests. Let me continue here. Roberts told a chaotic press conference that was late starting, suffered sound problems, and was dominated by the IBA's Russian president's lengthy rants. This Roberts, he's one of the officials of the IBA, and he's saying the results of the test that we referred to earlier or read about earlier from the IBA side, that these tests indicated the boxers, there were two of them, I believe. One of them was Imane Khelif, that the test they did showed they had chromosomes that made them ineligible. And you say ineligible for what? Ineligible, that they're not eligible, according to the IBA, to participate in the women's category of the boxing competitions that the IBA was over. And the next paragraph, the one sentence paragraph, says he said the results of the test had been sent to the IOC in June last year, and that it had done nothing with it. So, just for me to kind of just explain what he's saying, the IBA representative, he's saying that they sent the results of the test to the IOC in June of 2023. Okay, last year would have been 2023, over a year ago. And he's saying the IOC, the International Olympic Committee, didn't do anything with it. That's the contention statement position of the IBA. All right, so let's go to the next thing here. And here we have the Associated Press. Let's try to cut through some of the rigmarole and get to a couple relevant pieces of information. So Adams confirmed that the IOC received a letter. Skipping down to the last part of this, sent in June of last year. That would have been 2023. So apparently the IOC is saying that yes, or confirming yes, they did receive a letter from the IBA, the International Boxing Association, who disqualified Imane from boxing in the IBA's competition in the women's category. So Imane was disqualified, not allowed by the IBA to compete in the women's competitions. Let's see what the IOC spokesperson is saying here. Adams wouldn't discuss the letter's contents, but reiterated those tests are not legitimate. So the IOC is contending the IBA's tests were not legitimate for some. I'm not sure what the reason is, because the IOC is saying they don't know what the test specifics, the exact tests are, but they are saying they're not legitimate. Next paragraph. There was indeed a letter, he said. I'm not going to discuss the individual intimate details of athletes in public, which I think is pretty disgraceful for those who have leaked that material. Frankly, to be put in that position must be awful, on top of all of the social media harassment that these athletes have had. IOC President Thomas Bach had sought Saturday to draw a line under days of global scrutiny about the female boxers and what he described as a politically motivated culture war. We have two boxers who are born as women, who have been raised as women, who have a passport as a woman, and have competed for many years as women, Bach said. Some want to own a definition of who is a woman. So it's saying here, it appears from this and other things that I have dug into, that the IOC is contending they're women because they were dressed um, or culturally raised in the fashion of women, where they were where Imane was living, I guess as a child and adult, and that the passport says a woman. So bottom line, I'm not seeing IOC even has said in here and other places that they've even done a sex determination test. So let's move on, because there's some stuff I want to show you, or that you hear from icons.
Actually, the Sydney Games were the first games where the IOC no longer sex verified athletes. So they banned the screening for sex. Prior to that, and I have friends like Nancy Hogshead, I know, I believe Sharon Davies had to have cheek swabs as part of their eligibility to be a women's Olympic athlete. And they actually carried around a card that stated M or F that determined which category they were eligible to compete. It's a simple cheek swab that, again, determined the sex, XX, XY, and that determined your eligibility. The IOC eliminated that sex verification test based on activists at the time who deemed that quote unquote, non-inclusive or discriminatory against the will of the athletes themselves. They were polled. Over 80% of female athletes wanted this testing to ensure fairness.
So one of the things, please note that it's been that. Well, let me say this. Marshy Smith, she is co-founder for an organization that the acronym is ICONS, and she is a former um, NCAA and Pac-10 championship title holder, and I believe other awards in the world of athletics from some some years past. And she co-founded Icons along with another notable athlete from the past, in order to promote fairness in women's sports. So she is talking about the fact that for over a quarter century, the IOC no longer. It started back with the Sydney, Australia Olympics, so that had been 2000, I believe. So my understanding is from then to now that they are no longer doing basic, screening to validate the sex of individuals that are competing in the women's sports. And again, she's saying that over 80% of the women athletes polled in a poll done wanted the IOC not to stop doing basic screening, sex verification to determine eligibility for people to compete in the women's category. All right, let's hear what else.
IOC in 2000, over 20 years ago, has revoked the ability to determine that this is fair and ethical sport and that only female athletes are competing in the category. So the confusion today is that the IOC is calling these boxers female definitively in press releases and statements, and they themselves have eliminated the ability for sex of any athlete. So this is why they cannot confirm the sex of these boxers, and yet the IBA did do the testing previously and determined that these are male athletes.
So you say, okay, why does it matter if a person competing in the women's category has, what if they have the XY chromosomes? Um, why does it matter if they're, you know, born with, go through puberty with the XY chromosomes? Like me, I'm a former athlete back in my high school and college days and before. Why does it matter? So let's hear a bit more of what this former multi-title championship athlete has to say, and also co-founder of Icons.
And there has been extensive research on male advantage, performance advantage in sport, and also the use of testosterone suppression and the effects on the male body. And what we have found definitively is that that advantage can never be removed. So it can be diminished, but men have an average 10 to 12% athletic advantage over women. In a sport like boxing, there's actually 160% punching power advantage men have over women. So even if you dissipate that advantage by 10%, say, you can never bring that male performance advantage down to equate to women. And, this is a matter of, do female athletes deserve fair and ethical sport?
Okay, so let's wrap this up. So basically, again, I'm not for boxing because I don't believe, in punching people, whether it's women punching or men punching people in the face. That's kind of a barbaric form of entertainment. Reminds me of the somewhat of the ancient Roman gladiators. But one of the points you're making is the difference between the male power in punching and the female power. So a guy can have 160% of the punching power of a woman. I mean, if you understand, that basic percentage she's saying, if she's anywhere close to right, I mean, that ends up being, the guy could quite easily, much more easily than him, tussling and boxing and wrestling or whatever combat sports. With a woman, he can much more easily, even accidentally, kill, maim, injure, even, you know, just devastate a woman in the ring in a match and not even be trying to do so. All right, let's end it there.